steal Palestinian land, and Obama's quiet. Because why? Obama wants to have a smooth election next month, and he wants to have a smooth re-election as president in 2 years. So
what does Israel have to do with an election here? I mean, it's not like China financing Bill Clinton's campaigns or anything, right?
Well, actually, Jewish donors that are closely tied to Israel are a big part of the Democratic funds for running for office. So there is a connection. And, of course, but I think the bigger connection that people like Obama see is they don't want the media turning against them. And the perception of picking on Israel is the quickest way to get the media to turn on you.
Yeah, it's amazing. I saw this thing a few months back with Wolf Blitzer interviewing Paul Begala from the Democrat side and some hack from the Republican side. And the question was, why does Barack Obama hate Israel so much? And what's his problem anyway? Of course, Wolf Blitzer used to write for the Jerusalem Post and was the editor of the AIPAC newsletter, or whatever, was the front man, AIPAC's PR man for years before he was a CNN anchor there. He never was a journalist, really. Well, maybe last time he was a journalist was for the Jerusalem Post. And then the whole conversation was the right-wing guy saying, yeah, he is anti-Israel, and Paul Begala saying, no, he's not. Israel is the most important thing in the world, far more important than America. And Barack Obama knows that, believe me.
Well, he got that right, didn't he? It's all perceptions, it's all spin, and it's all basically a domestic lobby that undeniably is extremely powerful, and these politicians tread very carefully around it. And but I think what I'm saying is, in terms of foreign policy, and Israel, of course, is a big issue. Obama hasn't made any changes for the better. I don't see any. The language is better. He speaks better. He's more articulate than George Bush ever was. He sounds more empathetic. He doesn't quite go to the extent of Bill Clinton and start crying or anything like that. But he makes all the right noises. And then the problem is that the noises aren't really backed up by any deeds.
What about Nigeria? Is America going to go to war in Nigeria?
Why would we go to war with Nigeria?
Well, there's oil there, and there's rebels who are sick and tired of all their oil being stolen by Shell. And there was a great piece in Vanity Fair by Sebastian Younger back in 2007. It was one of the first interviews I did on AntiwarRadio, actually. And I've noticed, there was some DOD report or something that came out a couple of weeks ago that talked about, future wars that they're considering or preparing for. And these are, red, yellow, and orange for 1, 2, and 3 for how likely they are. And I've seen commercials for join the Navy, and they show, the not too distant future guys. And where are they? It's not the Mekong Delta, but they're in a jungle on a river somewhere, armed to the teeth. And it just looks like Nigeria to me. I don't know. It seems like these guys kind of, they plan these things way out, and after all, they can always just point at Abdul Muttalib, the underbomber, to justify it if they need to, right?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I've seen reports that Nigeria is in a very fragile condition. It's ethnically very divided, and you're right, it has a major militant movement in the Niger Delta. I have never heard of any specific plans for the U.S. to intervene there, but why not? I mean, we've intervened everywhere else. I mean, I'm more worried.
Another 10, Phil, or you got to go?
Well, another 10, okay.
All right, we'll stop here. Hang tight, everybody. More Phil Giraldi on AntiwarRadio right after this.
I'm Angela Keaton for LibertyStickers.com. Admit it, our public debate has been reduced to reading each other's bumper stickers. So visit LibertyStickers.com and find great stickers like, "The surge is working. On you. What happens in Vegas stays in a government database forever. The right is wrong, the left is stupid. Barack Obama, bloodthirsty warmonger. LibertyStickers.com, that's 877-873-9626, LibertyStickers.com. Everyone else's stickers suck.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
All right, y'all, welcome back to the show.
Thanks,
AntiwarRadio. I'm Scott Horton. I'm on the phone with Phil Giraldi, former CIA and DIA officer, executive director of the Council for the National Interest Foundation, member of the American Conservative Defense Alliance, contributing editor at the American Conservative magazine. And now let's talk a little bit about Somalia here. What kind of troubles we got in Somalia? I heard that maybe some of the guys involved in the 1998 African embassy bombings, Phil, might have been there, and so that's why we got to bomb those people, right?
Well, that's the narrative that the administration is pursuing. Yeah, I don't know enough to say whether people that were involved in the bombing are there or not. They claim that there are, but again, is this an issue that basically you're interested in starting yet another war about, or is it something that you use, police and intelligence resources to try to find and catch these people and do what you can to neutralize them? Do you spend $1 billion in trying to track one guy down? I don't know. The mathematics of all this escapes me. The problem is that we're using as you were referring to earlier when we were talking a scalpel or a sledgehammer. We always seem to use the sledgehammer as the preferred solution. And the thing is that the people who wind up paying the price for this are the American soldiers who don't have to die, but are dying because we're fighting wars that are unnecessary, and the taxpayer who has to foot the bill for all this, and will be footing the bill for all this for 30 years to come. It just doesn't make any sense to me. The desire of the United States government to fix things overseas by a military option or a use of force is just something that doesn't seem to make much sense.
Well, there's a large Somali American population in Minnesota, and at least the federal pigs claim, I don't know whether it's true or not, that a lot of these guys, a dozen or something, have traveled to Somalia to fight on the side of al-Shabaab, which makes me wonder, what if they just went to the Mall of America and started killing people there instead? What do you think would happen if we had, what if that plane over Detroit had actually blown up on Christmas Day, or the Times Square bomb had been successful? What would happen to America? The next red alert, Phil.
Well, you're raising serious concerns. I mean, I for one, am not a person to deny that terrorism exists. Terrorism is a tool that's used asymmetrically against a stronger power by a weaker power, and it relies on staging surprise attacks against the defenseless population, and it's a horrible thing. The United States is not going to be defeated or destroyed by somebody going to the Mall of America and blowing himself up. It's not going to be destroyed by a SUV blowing up in Times Square. And even if that airliner had been damaged enough to go down, it wouldn't destroy the United States. The thing is, we can do that by overreacting to these threats, as was demonstrated both in Times Square and in the potential airline bomber. Alert citizenry and security measures that are in place will stop 99.9% of these attempts. And there are always going to be people that try to do that. And I don't know the reality of these Somalis who allegedly are going back to Somalia and getting radicalized and potentially coming back. But to me, it sounds like the usual scare story. I kind of wonder, quite honestly, why we have a lot of Somalis living in Minneapolis, but that has more to do with immigration policy than it does with terrorism.
It wouldn't be a problem if our government wasn't killing Somalis all day and pissing them off, Yeah,
but the point is we're taking them in because we're killing them.
Yeah.
We create an unstable situation in parts of the world, and suddenly we wind up with refugees living in the United States who are kind of pissed off. So, it's a vicious circle in terms of how we do these things. If we would just leave people alone, we'd probably all be a lot better off. It's my suspicion. But, if it's true that there are Somalis that are getting radicalized, well, it seems that the FBI has a pretty good idea who they are and is tracking them and so on and so forth. And all right, let's leave that as it is. I mean, it's not a case like last week. There were a couple of announcements that Muslims in general now are seen as a subversive group in the United States. That the domestic terrorism problem is something we should all be worrying about. Well, you don't kind of identify a group of 11 or 12 million people and call them subversives unless you want that to happen. And I think I made a comment in something I wrote that if it were true that there were 10 or 11 million really angry Muslims in the United States, there would be a terror bombing every day, and we haven't had any. So the fact is that there's some disconnect in terms of what's being said and what the reality must be.
Mm-hmm. Well, and back to the Israel lobby, because that is what this is all about, isn't it? The neoconservatives and the Likud firstnicks in the United States are determined to make American people hate and fear all Muslims, because that happens to be who Israel's enemies are.
Well, I think that's exactly right. I think there is a strain in neoconservative thinking, which is basically that the end objective is to one country at a time to fix the entire Muslim world. And since there are about 56 majority Muslim countries, we still have a ways to go. But I believe that is their thinking, that they're basically trying to demonize Muslims in the minds of the average American, so that there will be a kind of a support for military action against these places. And I do believe that is part of the philosophy.
Well, it's amazing to me that well, I'm sure you've seen that clip of Norman Podhoretz saying, well, if we do attack Iran, which I hope and pray we will, it will unleash a wave of anti-Americanism around the world that'll make our current situation look like a love fest. And I think everyone understands, don't they, audience? Don't you understand that Ayatollahs in Iran are Osama bin Laden's enemies? But they're also Israel's enemies. And so, we just continue to, our government continues to act in ways that are just, they couldn't be more counterproductive to what's actually in the interest of the American population here.
Well, I mean, true security for the United States is in the United States. I mean, we should be defending the United States to our last drop of blood, but we shouldn't be killing other people preemptively in the mistaken belief that this is going to make us safer. And that's unfortunately what we've been doing. I mean, what is Obama? There was an astonishing headline in the Washington Post today. It was something to the effect of worries about the stability of Pakistan. And what does that headline mean? That we're worried about the stability of Pakistan? We were the ones that destabilized Pakistan and continuing to destabilize Pakistan and interfering in their domestic politics and everything. And so, what an asinine headline that there were worries on the part of the State Department and the White House about the stability. For Christ's sakes, I mean, you guys to them. And now you're pointing the finger at them as if it's kind of their fault, I just don't get it anymore. As I get older, I begin to think that either I'm going to get senile early or the whole system has just kind of self-destructed, and it's like the emperor's new clothes. And is there anybody out there kind of pointing at them and saying, he doesn't have any clothes on. Obama doesn't have any clothes on.
Yeah, well, it's just like Bill Hicks used to say, it's not you, Phil, it's them. You're the one who's right here, man.
I like to believe that.
Yeah, I mean, come on, it's obvious. It's madness. I mean, the Washington Post, reprinting Bob Woodward's book in pieces there, has Joe Biden saying we must secure Pakistan's nuclear weapons. Does that sound like a big invasion plan? The most risky invasion plan in the history of mankind right there, or what? And they just drop it like it's obvious.
Well, and the thing that kills me is that it'll probably kill me and you, and Joe Biden will probably enjoy a comfortable retirement somewhere. Honest to God, I mean, it's just like these people have no connection anymore with the people that they represent, and they keep playing the charade of how they represent the people and how they're interested in helping the American public and everything like that. The American public's out of work. The American public is poor, infinitely poorer than they were 10 years ago. We're facing all kinds of catastrophes around the world, and the politicians are still smiling. I don't get it.
Yeah, me either. Well, and like you said, too, so much of the left or the progressives, I shouldn't say the left, because the real left, they don't believe in Democrats, but the progressives and the liberals, they're just in the tank for Obama, and they're just going to stay that way as long as Sarabin exists, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's true. And Palin is a moron who unfortunately is capturing the foreign policy or the security policy hearts of the teabaggers. And so there's no hope anywhere. I mean, the teabaggers basically have a lot of good things that they stand for, like smaller government, less intrusion by government in the lives of individual Americans. But can't they see that the foreign policy issue, the terrorism issue, is what drives a lot of this growth in government and drives a lot of the abuses that they see? And then they get an idiot like Sarah Palin up talking about her son. What does funny mean? Track? I can't remember. They all have weird names. And anyway, how proud she is that she's the mother of a combat soldier.